welcome to the premiere episode of Inside Monsters Football and the start of the brand new 2025 Elite Football League. I am your host, Anthony Sfrutis. I am joined by Editor-in-Chief of Monsters Mash Magazine, Joe Fitzgerald, and commentator of the Monsters on WREG, Wyatt Caber. This Elite Football League is composed of 3 new teams full of rosters of former NFL players and coaches. And tasked with coaching the new Monsters roster is Arthur Smith.
And yeah, Arthur Smith just made a lot of sense to coach this football team. From a schematical standpoint, he's always been a pretty heavy connoisseur of the run game and how he uses his tight ends, and overall, just in general, has a lot of connections to the city of Memphis. His father was one of the most successful businessmen and really transformed the landscape of the city. So personally, schematic-wise, he really makes sense for this football team.
And Coach Smith will have firm stability from the quarterback position with Joe Burrow and Jackson Dart tasked to lead this offense.
Absolutely, Anthony. I mean, Joe Burrow, he's going to be the heartbeat for this offense. He's led the Cincinnati Bengals to their first Super Bowl in over 30 years. When it's late in the game and it's fourth down, you want this guy at the helm, so they should be real excited for him. But Monsters fans shouldn't forget about Jackson Dart. Just because he's a backup doesn't mean that he can't be a starter for them in the future. So Ole Miss fans, I'm sure, remember this guy and should be excited for him for the Monsters.
And speaking of excitement for the Monsters, it was really a no-brainer for them with the number 1 overall pick in the Elite Football Draft, who they selected Derrick Henry, who was an NFL running back for the past 7 years.
Yeah, Derrick Henry just is the total package, speed, power, and just a great ball carrier in your bell cow. And also, Arthur Smith and this guy can make magic together. Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator when this guy rushed for 2,000 yards. He's really going to be that guy who's your early down guy. And he really fits the mold for this offense when it comes to, those duo heavy concepts where you're really trying to get it in between the tackles and wear teams down on first and second down. But also, too, this football team has another running back that's pretty successful too, in Kenneth Walker, who you could, put on the field in third down situations as well, and can not only carry the football but can pass protect, catch it, really do whatever. So they're in a pretty good situation when it comes to their running backs, and not only how they can carry the ball but also do other things as well, which will be a huge part of Arthur Smith's offense.
And speaking of Arthur Smith's offense, the wide receivers will play a humongous role, starting with Jackson Smith-Njigba, who burst onto the scene in the NFL these past 2 years and will surely be a nice security blanket for Burrow in this offense. And A.J. Brown and D.K. Metcalf went to college together and will surely round out this talented group of receivers for the Monsters, along with Calvin Austin.
Yeah, I mean, to start with Jackson Smith-Njigba, known as JSN, I mean, his most recent season in the NFL, he led the league in NFL receptions and passing yards. So this guy is a scary route technician. You put him in the slot, he'll find his way to get open 99% of the time. He was a Rose Bowl MVP in 2023. And Monsters fans should really be excited about this receiver. Not to mention Calvin Austin III, another guy you can plug in there at the slot, which I think Arthur Smith will have him heavily involved in the offense with his speed. I think fans might wonder why, if he's going to perform with his small stature, but he's a fast guy and he's going to make big plays for the Monsters.
Yeah, and two, when you say that, not only them two as your inside slot guys, which has really revolutionized football these past few years in getting those mismatches, but those really are only effective when you have 2 guys on the outside that are your basic, big body X receivers that present mismatch. And what other guys can you get better than DK Metcalf and AJ Brown? Not only just in general, but for this offense, for this city, both of them Ole Miss guys, both of them have played for Arthur Smith. And when you talk about an Arthur Smith offense where you start off by grinding a team down within the run game, they're forced to play their hand by dropping a safety into the box, and that gives you your one-on-one opportunity on the outside to take that shot to your DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown. So it really makes a lot of sense for this football team.
And speaking of the Arthur Smith-led offense, the tight ends especially will play a humongous role in the pass-catching game as well as the blocking game. And you can't get much better than Trey McBride and Tyler Warren, 2 Mackey Award winners in college, and I think Monsters fans should be really excited with these 2 tight ends.
Yeah, obviously you're going to talk about McBride, and he's going to be your typical wide tight end that you can line up in line, flex him out, do so much stuff with. And as we've seen, as we were saying about Arthur Smith's offense, he's going to be doing all of that stuff. He's going to be motioning a lot. He's going to be doing whatever to try to put defenses in stressful situations and put them in conflict.
Yeah, and Tyler Warren, I mean, first team All-America, first team All-Big Ten in 2024. This guy next to Trey McBride is a scary sight. I'm excited to see what he's going to do on the field. I'm sure you guys are as well. Like you said, Anthony, Mackey Award winner for both of these guys. It's going to be a scary sight.
And they won't be the only ones helping with this run game, as the run game should be able to find success with the holes the offensive line creates. And I think Monsters fans should really get to know the boys up front. I mean, I think a big part of their run success will come down to guys like Penei Sewell, Trent Williams, and Tyler Linderbaum, just to name a few.
You know, obviously, yeah, and not only do these guys represent the hard-nosed football team that is the Memphis Monsters, but these guys can do it all from an offensive line perspective. A guy like Penei Sewell, freak athlete, you can not only have him block down on a end, but you can also see him, you know, pull and kick out somebody. Like, this guy can set your complete identity of a franchise, and, you know, who's going to be responsible for keeping a guy like Joe Burrow clean? You know, you can't buy a Lamborghini and not buy proper brakes for it or protection for it. So, you know, you're going to need to have these guys really perform. And as we've seen with teams in the past, building up front is how you build success.
And Trey Smith, Wyatt Teller, Mason McCormick also, let's not sleep on them. They will also be tasked with helping keep this offensive line healthy and the run game. And speaking of the front seven now, as we shift focus to the defense, which Coach Smith lauds as one of the best in the league, as he says, guys like Jalen Carter, Chris Jones, Dexter Lawrence, and Vita Vea. I mean, I don't think Coach Smith can get it any better than that for the Monsters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jalen Carter, big guy out of Georgia. He's helped the Eagles in the past couple of years. Still a very young guy, but he's already shown what he can do at the professional level. In college, he was a 2-time national champion at Georgia, first team All-American and first team All-SEC in 2022. He's going to be a dominant force in this league, and especially for the Monsters. And not to mention the go after Monsters, is Vita Vea. This guy's been in the league for a while. Just absolute monster out of Michigan. Huge guy. I really am curious to see how people are going to run on this D-line, adding him and also big, sexy Dexy Lawrence. This D-line is going to be something else.
And if you think that's enough, then Myles Garrett, Bryce Huff, and Abdul Carter on the edge as well. That is just a scary sight for quarterbacks to see.
I mean, you talk about a quarterback that might be, you know, shaking in his boots when he's sitting back in the pocket. And you see these names out there combined with what we already said. But in the past few years, we've really seen a transition in modern football. And it's that the edge rusher position is becoming as important as ever. You have these quarterbacks, especially in the league that we're seeing now, you're going to need that guy to provide consistent pressure on every single down so that it speeds everything up. And not only that, you also need these guys to be able to set the edge, as hence the position name. So when they can't run the football, you can't let these tackles reach block you. And that's what these guys on the edge are going to do. And who does it better? Myles Garrett, 6-time Pro Bowler. Abdul Carter, you know, a young phenom. We saw him in the college football playoff at Penn State. And not even to mention a kid that has local ties, Bryce Huff. He'll fit right in not only with the team, but the culture that it provides.
I'm glad you mentioned that about Bryce Huff, Memphis guy himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Excited to see what he can do.
For sure.
And along with this defense, Roquan Smith will lead a talented group of hard-nosed linebackers along with Zach Bond and Henry Teoto as the quarterbacks of this defense, as Arthur Smith says.
Yeah, Roquan Smith is going to be the quarterback of this defense for the Monsters. going to be the middle linebacker, calling the shots. He's a field general. He's known to be very talkative. He'll talk his trash too. So he gets out there and he's going to lead this defense. I mean, this guy, 3-time Pro Bowler, AFC Defensive Player of the Month in 2022. I mean, this guy's won more awards than any middle linebacker you won out there. So I'm excited to see him out there lined up with Tuo as well out of Alabama. He's one of those sneaky good guys, not to mention, I remember watching him when he played for Saban and Alabama's team. He's a guy that really gets off the edge quick, even for a middle linebacker, and excited to see what he can do. Zach Bond is a sneaky guy as well, athletically. Played for the Eagles, went to Wisconsin. I'm really excited to see what this middle group for this defense can do.
And rounding out this defense with the safeties and the DBs, guys like Jalen Ramsey, Pat Surtain II, Kyle Hamilton, and Harrison Smith will be tasked with defending the receiving game in lockdown coverage. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. And Monsters fans should be really excited with this shutdown coverage in the back end.
And no, of course not. It really doesn't get better because when you even say, let's just start with Kyle Hamilton, this guy can not only match up with another team's tight end or slot receiver, but you can call something like a cover 3 and put this guy in the box, and he will be just as physical as any other linebacker you will see. You can blitz him. You can do so many different things, and that's really the art of defensive football in 2025. It's how can you make one thing look a certain way but play out in a different way, and that's what gives these young quarterbacks a lot of trouble. And then not even to mention you have your typical man cornerback in Pat Surtain. This is going to be the guy that, Arthur Smith or whoever is going to say, hey, you go and line up against this guy. And a competitor like Pat Surtain's going to line up there and he's going to go to work. And not only that, but he can also take and lock down a certain side of the field. And then, of course, you got your Jalen Ramsey back there who's not only going to play his tail off, but he's going to set that edge. He's going to be the guy in the locker room that if you're getting torched in the passing game or whatever the case may be, Jalen Ramsey will reset that standard. This guy has 7 Pro Bowls. You can line him up in the nickel. You can line him up outside. You can, similar to Kyle Hamilton, you can blitz him. You can put him in the run game. And that's what this is really all about is, positionless football in a sense. You don't want to limit these guys to do one thing overall, and that's what really makes it. And not even to mention, of course, Harrison Smith, similar to Jalen Ramsey, he's going to be that vocal leader who says, all right, this alignment isn't looking good, or one of the guys is, slacking in a certain department. He will voice that. And like Roquan Smith, as you said, having that type of guy will change everything for you because, you can't have coaches on the field, especially when the defense motions, when things change right in front of you. You need a guy to not only react within his play, but react with how he communicates. And that's what really Harrison Smith is going to do for this team, as well as every single one of these guys. So, yeah, that's...
And to add on to that, these guys, especially Pat Surtain, every week in the NFL is covering the best of the best receivers week in and week out. So I just think it's crazy, having all these guys on the same team covering the best receivers in the world. The Monsters fans can't ask for better DBs, don't you think?
Yeah, of course not. And as we were saying, and just touching on these DBs a little bit more, when you do have a guy like Pat Surtain, you think back to times like the Darrelle Revises, Deion Sanders, when a receiver can really carve a guy up in the National Football League. It can really be a liability when you don't have a guy that you can trust and say, you're on him. And it really is simple as that. And the thing is Pat Surtain's one of these cornerbacks where you say, the best cornerbacks, you tend to not hear their name a lot. And that's where he is because you're not going to see him get beat too often. You're not going to see any of those things. And that's why, the guy's a Defensive Player of the Year. Is there anything really more we need to say?
And Jalen Ramsey in his last year at Pittsburgh, working alongside Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
Getting familiar with his head coach now to be. It's that chemistry is already being built over there, especially with all the Memphis guys.
Yeah, of course. And you even see with a lot of the veterans on this football team, too. Jalen Ramsey with the DK Metcalf. Both of those guys have done it and been there. So they're going to be able to set the standard. So when things aren't looking like they should, or things aren't seeming like, whether that's schematical, whether that's attitude-wise, they will reset the standard, and that is so
Absolutely.
big for a football team.
Yeah, like you said, Joe, the Monsters fans should be excited. They have a lot of hard-nosed players who play the game the right way. And as we wrap up with special teams, new punter Brian Anger and new kicker Jake Elliott will play vital roles for the special teams, which may get overshadowed at times, but are still humongous roles for this Monsters team.
Yeah, of course. And Brian Anger, a lot of people are going to hear, oh, it's just a punter, and they won't think twice. But that is such a crucial thing to have. Having a leg that can, of course, get you out of your own, sticky situations in your field position, but really flipping the field. It may not show up in the box score as much, but that is so crucial, because at the end of the game, you think to yourself, oh, well, it didn't seem like we did that bad. But you look at little things like the turnover battle and then the hidden yardage when it comes to special teams, and that really comes with having a punter. Having that guy that can flip the field it's so important for you as a group, no matter how it is. Having him being able to do that and in tune with the rest of the team, it really goes a long way. And I'm really looking forward to see Anger take on that role as this team's punter.
And Jake Elliott is no slouch either, as he was kicker for the Eagles for 5 seasons and won a Super Bowl with them back in 2017. I think Monsters fans should be really excited about this addition in the kicking game.
Absolutely, Anthony. Like you said, Super Bowl champion 2024. Memphis Tiger, so fans should be familiar about this guy as well. 2-time Pro Bowler. He holds multiple franchise records for the Philadelphia Eagles. If I couldn't see if I was a Monsters fan, like wanting anyone else other than this guy.
And going along, it's being a kicker too, as you said, with having that guy that you not only know can make plays, but trust. And that's what you have with Jake Elliott. That's the same way that it's framed with Joe Burrow on 4th down. Can you trust this guy to make plays when it's necessary? And when you need a guy that's, from 49 yards plus, kicking a field goal, that is going to be your Jake Elliott, and I think it really goes along with the rest of this team. As we said, what other guys would you want other than the Myles Garrett's rushing the passer when the clock hits, when times are getting tough, you need your Jake Elliott's, you need your Brian Angers, you need your guys that you can trust to make plays on a football field. And that's what a lot of this football team has, and that's why Arthur Smith is definitely going to be excited to have them all.
Yeah, Arthur Smith should have no worries in the kicking game, as Jake Elliott should provide that security blanket as well as that clutch gene in him to kick those high leverage situations.
And just to go along with that too, as you said, special teams is so important, and with a lot of the type of guys on this football team, you're going to probably see a little bit of some funky wrinkles when it comes to fakes or whatever. I mean, I think we've seen Jake Elliott, execute a fake or two in his career. I mean, could we imagine seeing Tyler Warren slip into the flat, Trey McBride slip into the flat? That would be pretty impressive to see. And, sometimes those are, and it's just about this, the little intricacies of football that we sometimes don't really pay that much attention to are so big, and that's where your Brian Anger and Jake Elliott and overall this whole football team has. When it comes to the offensive line, when it comes to the running backs, of course there's the star guys like your DK Metcalfs, Myles Garrett's, all those guys, but the guys that make up the offensive line, any of these guys, they can really change the game, and they can really make a difference for this football team.
Absolutely, Joe. And just to piggyback off the fakes that you mentioned, I mean, this guy, Brian Anger, 12-year NFL veteran. He's seen some things in his career that I'm sure he's been going to be more than willing to bring to this roster. And hopefully you guys are excited, because I'm excited to see where this goes with this team.
Oh, man.
And folks, as we wrap up this edition of Inside Monsters Football, know that you can also access tickets on memphismonsters.com or tune into Valley Sports South and WREG News Channel 3 for all Monsters game on TV. And for radio, tune into Sports 56 WHBQ and ESPN 92.9 FM. Remember, the Monsters' first game is November 10th. For Wyatt Caber and Joe Fitzgerald, I'm Anthony Sfrudis. I know we are excited for the season, and Monster fans should be as well.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Inside the Soul, the official soul of the San Diego Soul football team. I'm your host, Jake Kozel, and it's an exciting time here in San Diego as the Elite Football League's first season kicks off on November 10th, bringing major professional football back to the area for the first time in decades. Alongside Julian Biondi, the color commentator for the Soul and former Pro Bowl nose guard, we've got a great show ahead of you, and let's get you ready for kickoff as the Soul have drafted a roster well curated to the liking of head coach Deion Sanders, who's had a successful coaching career as well as a long NFL career. And Julian, you love Deion as leader of this team.
Absolutely, Jake. You think of Deion Sanders, you think of one of the greatest North American athletes to ever play any sport. You think of him as an elite baseball player. You think of him as an elite football talent. He's a Hall of Famer. 2011, he was elected to the Hall of Fame, and now he is a very above-average coach. Not just above average, but one of the most winningest coaches of the last few years. He has a 43-23 record in college football, and I say above average because that's kind of the mantra that people have about him, but I don't think people really dive deep enough into the statistics. He had 11-win season in 2021 with Jackson State, which is a school record, which is absolutely remarkable. Not only that, but he has 2 SWAC championships in 2021 and 2022. And Colorado, he did a great job turning that program right around. And he brings a certain level of swag to the locker room for the San Diego Soul. And I think they're just really excited to have him. He loves hard-nosed football. He's tough. And I think bringing that to this roster that was perfectly designed for exactly what he's looking for. The 6-time first-team All-Pro and the 2-time Super Bowl champion, Deion Sanders.
And he's got a lot of swag. He's got a lot of tricks up his sleeves with designs. Let's start with the quarterback room. We have Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson in that quarterback room. They have 4 total NFL MVPs, among them 2 apiece, 10 Pro Bowls with them. Who would you start on opening night between Mahomes and Jackson?
Well, Jake, it's a really tough question. I would have to go with Patrick Mahomes, and I'll tell you why. In a press release, the Soul announced Patrick Mahomes as their starting quarterback, which took some people by surprise, and some people, I think, were definitely on board. I'll say I'm on board with Patrick Mahomes, and I'll tell you why. Not only is he a natural-born leader, he's got one of the best arms in football. He will come in there, give you everything he has. Lately, he's shown off a tremendous level of mobility. Obviously not to the stature of Lamar Jackson, but he's just somebody that that can come in there, win you big games. He's done it before. He has the Super Bowl MVPs to prove it. And I think it's definitely the right direction. Also, it makes Lamar Jackson a little bit more expendable. You can use Lamar in a wildcat role, which I think is exactly what Deion Sanders is planning on doing, in my opinion. I think that he'll do a great job still incorporating Lamar in wildcat roles, read options, RPOs, obvious quarterback running situations, sneaks, anything of that nature. Lamar's going to be the guy for. So he's still going to have a role on this team with Deion Sanders. I know he loves to utilize all of his players to the best of their ability, but I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be your clear-cut starting quarterback.
So you mentioned it a little bit beforehand. In a press release, the Soul announced they have named Patrick Mahomes as their starter with, quote, QB Lamar Jackson to take on a wildcat role. So would you see a scenario where you see possibly both quarterbacks on the field at the same time, or is that...
It's Deion Sanders, Jake. You said it earlier. He has a bunch of tricks up his sleeve, and I think that's exactly what he's going to do. I think you could throw Lamar Jackson in the slot or as the X receiver.
Very versatile.
And exactly, Jake. You took the words right out of my mouth. We could go double passes. We could do trick plays. We as in Deion. I just think he's super expendable. This offense should be really looking forward to having both of these decorated players on the field.
And Jackson, of course, is the NFL's all-time leader in quarterback rushing yards. Let's talk about the pass game a little bit and the tight end. So Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, those will be their 9th consecutive year together with going from Kansas City now to San Diego. How valuable do you think chemistry is when it comes to the clutch, right? Those final 2 minutes of halves.
Clutch is exactly why Patrick Mahomes needs to be on the field, and that's exactly why he needs his tight end Travis Kelce. And as you said, they were together for 9 years in Kansas City under Coach Andy Reid, the legendary Coach Andy Reid. And Travis Kelce gives you a level of safety when you're in that red zone. You know that he's a big target that's going to be there. He's going to get open. He's going to find the soft spots in zone coverage. And he's just a trusty guy to have, regardless of what anyone says about his age or his performance. I think he's probably the best tight end of all time.
Absolutely.
And the stats say that. I mean, even in his age 35 season, he had 823 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. That's nothing to laugh at. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion, all with his compadre, Mahomes, and he's a 10-time Pro Bowler. So I think he just brings that level of trust and safety for his quarterback, and you know that you can find a big target like him in the red zone. And speaking of big targets, Jake.
They also got Darnell Washington in there. He's a 2-time college national champion, 2022 second-team All-SEC. He used to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers from 2023 to 25. But let's talk about the running back room with Jonathan Taylor and Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs, obviously in the NFL with Detroit, ran split playing time with David Montgomery in the backfield. So how big of a factor could that experience be on a loaded roster and a loaded room?
I was really looking forward to talking about running backs with you tonight, Jake. Jonathan Taylor. Can there be enough said about Jonathan Taylor?
Probably not.
He does a little bit of everything, as does Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Deion Sanders is looking forward to having these two guys as his running backs. First off, Jonathan Taylor, he was a second-round pick in 2020, and he was a little bit under the radar in terms of other running backs that were drafted ahead of him. I think that he's one of the best in the league when he's healthy, and he seems to be healthy for Deion so far. Really looking forward to his all-purpose ability. He's great out of the backfield. He finds the gaps that his offensive line will create for him very easily. He can stick his foot in the ground, make a move, make people miss. He's a great leader. He just seems to do everything right. And as for Jahmyr Gibbs, you talked about how he split some playing time in Detroit with David Montgomery. And I think that's exactly kind of the style that Deion Sanders is going to bring with these running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs, I would say, was the king of all-purpose yards in the NFL. And actually that he was having the most in 2024. He also is a touchdown machine because of that. Having the most total touchdowns in the NFL last year.
So Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery as the running backs, and the wide receivers, the flashier options. We have Justin Jefferson, Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, and Terry McLaurin to round out that group. With a group like that, they're all proven wide receiver 1 types. How do you see the target share shaking out?
I mean, it's not a bad problem to have, Jake. Having 4 wide receiver ones on your former wide receiver ones on your team, that's a pretty good problem to have. Justin Jefferson, widely known as probably in the top 2 receivers.
Most fun to watch too.
We're gonna love watching him do the gritty in the end zone.
Exactly.
And he's the fastest player to ever reach 5,000 career receiving yards. He's a machine. It doesn't matter who his quarterback is. He's going to make big plays. He's going to score touchdowns. And he's just another sure target for Mahomes and sometimes even Lamar Jackson. Puka Nacua, the young man out of BYU, he was setting rookie receiving records left and right in his time in the NFL. And even in 11 games last year, he put up almost 1,000 yards, which was pretty impressive considering his injury status last year. But that won't matter for this team because, as you said, there's 4 wide receiver 1s on this team. So another guy, Malik Neighbors, not a ton of consistent quarterback play in his stint in the NFL, but still was 2024's Pro Football Focus highest grade rookie receiver. He also put up over 1,200 yards and started every single game in his rookie season. So they have a lot to look forward to in terms of the youth of this wide receiver room. And then finally, Terry McLaurin. just another sure target. It doesn't matter who his quarterback is; he's going to get 1,000 yards.
Exactly, and it's a stacked skill with the
Absolutely.
positions, skill rooms. Now let's talk about the trenches, right? The offensive line, a combined 9 Pro Bowls with this group, including Quentin Nelson, Landon Dickinson, Zach Frazier. Is this the best O line in the EFL on paper?
No debate, Jake.
None.
No debate. I mean, even just from the standpoint, you have Quentin Nelson. I mean, that guy is a dog. He had 7 first-team All-Pros. That's 7 for 7 in his career.
That's pretty impressive.
As a rookie, he had a first.
I wish
he
I
was
was
on
good
the
at
first
everything I
team.
did, but
I know.
every year.
I'm jealous of Quentin Nelson. 7-time first-team All-Pro, Jake, which is extremely impressive considering 7 seasons in the NFL. He's fast. He can pull. He hold his own in pass blocking. You talk about Landon Dickerson, another 3-time Pro Bowler, and you just talk about this line. You know that they're going to win battles in the trenches. You know they're going to create holes for their running backs to run through.
And one guy we didn't mention, Will Campbell. He's the rookie out of LSU. After the NFL draft, he's picked 4th overall. He said, quote, he would die for his quarterback. That at the time, that was Drake May. Now he's got Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes to deal with. So a bigger slice of the pie for Campbell. And let's talk about the other side of the ball, right? The defensive line and the edge rushers. There are so many options on the line with T.J. Watt, Max Crosby, Derek Brown, Cameron Hayward. Who should start? Who should be that core 4 in the defensive line group?
Jake, no question, the edge rusher that need to start are T.J. Watt.
You love him.
And Max Crosby. I can't say enough positive about T.J. Watt. He does a little bit of everything. He can bull rush. He can dip inside. He has a spin move that's nice. He won the AP Defensive Player of the Year in 2021. There's so much to like about T.J. Watt. He tied the all-time NFL sack record in his stint with the Steelers. And then Max Crosby. He's another guy. He brings the energy. And he's a 2-time second-team All-Pro, multiple seasons with double-digit sacks for the Raiders and his time in the NFL. Those 2 guys, those are going to be a 2-headed monster there on the edge. And then also depth-wise, you have Josh Hines-Allen, who's another guy that has multiple seasons of double-digit sacks. So there's a lot to like in terms of the pass rush. And also, not to mention, these 3 guys are great against the run as well.
Absolutely. And let's take a step back now. Let's talk about more rushers, the linebackers. We have Patrick Queen, Matt Milano, and Robert Spillane. And, Queen and Milano, they could bring the speed and the coverage. Does this defense remind you more of a blitz-heavy team or a read and react group?
Well, first off, Jake, I want to say it all starts up front, too, with the defensive linemen as well as the linebackers. So talking about Cam Hayward for a second. Yeah. Cam Hayward, one of the best pass-rushing defensive linemen in the NFL during his time.
Absolutely.
He's a veteran. He's a proven veteran. You know that he's going to come in. He's going to mentor this group, these younger defensive linemen, and also there's a lot of versatility on this defensive line, and that also affects the linebackers. And I'll tell you why, Jake. If you give your linebackers and your secondary time, if they give your defensive line time, they're going to get to the quarterback.
Absolutely.
And we have. Dion has some of the best in the EFL in terms of pass rushing. So I'm really excited for these linebackers. First off, to answer your question, Jake, blitz heavy or read react, I got to go with blitz heavy, and I'll say Matt Milano. Matt Milano, he's a guy sideline to sideline, but he also has a nose for the football. He's gonna get in there. He's a tough guy. And then another guy who I think is very similar is Bobby Spillane.
He's bounced around.
He's bounced around, but everywhere he goes, hit stick after hit stick after hit stick. He forces a ton of fumbles. He's a sure tackler. 158 tackles for the Raiders last year, which is a single season record. There's a lot to like in terms of those 2 guys, but then you have Patrick Queen, who's not only great in terms of a sure tackler, but he's great in coverage. I mean, you can run a lot of zone coverage. You know that there's not going to be a ton given up the middle. And Patrick Queen for the Steelers last year had a Pro Bowl season. So I'm really looking forward to this linebacking group.
So Queen spent time with the Steelers last season. Spillane also played with the Steelers from 2019 to 2022. Let's take another step back with the defensive backs. We have Derwin James, J.C. Horn, Kool-Aid McKinstry, the rookie from LSU, as well as Travis Hunter, the two-way guy. Derwin James, more of the veteran guy in the group. He's played about 7 seasons in the NFL. He's the tone setter, essentially. How does versatility shape this defense?
Well, this defense, they have a ton of versatility. I mean, you can throw these guys just about anywhere, and you feel comfortable. Starting off with Derwin James, veteran with the LA Chargers of last year. He's a 4-time Pro or 2-time first-team All-Pro. There's a lot to like with him because you can throw him in the box, and you know that he's going to stop the run. You can throw him on blitzes, know that he can get a sack. There's a lot that you can do. I mean, he had 5.5 sacks for the Chargers last year, which is a ton for a defensive back.
Especially as a safety.
Absolutely. And you know, Deion Sanders, former Hall of Fame cornerback, is going to absolutely love this pick. And J.C. Horn, your shutdown corner. He's going to shut down all the number ones in this league. He was a top 10 pick in 2021 for Carolina, which proved for them to be the right choice because he went out there and just shut down everyone's number ones. And next, Kool-Aid McKinstry. Kool-Aid McKinstry, he's a young guy, but he has a ton of upside, and I think that learning from a guy like J.C. Horn and a guy like Derwin James is definitely the right choice.
So then the last one in that DB group, Travis Hunter, with Jacksonville, the little time he's played there, he's played about 58% of his offensive snaps for them and about 38% in defense. He's listed as a defensive back. Julian, do you think Hunter should play any offensive snaps, or should he stick strictly to defense?
Well, we talked about Deion Sanders and the tricks up his sleeve, and we know that Travis Hunter is a huge Deion Sanders guy. I mean, Deion and Hunter go way back. Starting off with Jackson State, they both transferred to Colorado with one another, and you know that they have a certain level of chemistry that's going to build on this team. I think that he is going to be used in that role where he's going to play offense and defense, and I think that's exactly what needs to happen because he's just so valuable on both sides. With Colorado, he had over 1,200 receiving yards and 15 touchdowns on offense, but also he had 4 picks on defense. So you know that what you're expecting out of him and the level of chemistry that Deion has with Hunter is unmatched.
And you love what's going to come up next, this special teams group.
Absolutely.
You talked about chemistry this entire show. We have 2 guys in that special teams unit, Chris Boswell, the kicker, and Marquette King, the veteran punter, who's bounced around a lot. You love Chris Boswell. He set the NFL record for most career games with over 6 field goals. He's got 3 of those. How important is it to have trust in your special teams unit?
Well, Jake, you say trust, and I know before the show we were talking about how much trust that Soul fans should have in their kicker. Chris Boswell, 2024 first-team All-Pro. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler, but when he was in his time in the NFL, the Steelers fans knew what they were getting out of Boswell, and they knew every single time he took a swing of the leg, that ball was going to go through, and you could have a sigh of relief when your kicker comes out there that he's going to hit clutch, big-time field goals. 93.2% on his field goals last year, and he's one of the most accurate kickers of all time from 50-plus yards. And he's 100% on his extra points last season. Soul fans know that they can trust this guy.
Absolutely, and then we have Marquette King, our next guy, our punter. Hopefully we don't see him too often, but if we do, he's one of the more storied punters in professional football. He's a 2023 XFL champion with the Arlington Raiders. He's bounced around the United States, Canada, and all over the world with his punting ability. He's absolutely phenomenal. I know you love him as well. Oh
yeah, Marquette King is going to be vital to this team, not only in flipping the field with his big leg, but you talked about tricks up his sleeve, and Marquette King is known for his fake punt plays. I mean, he has a little bit of an arm on him. He's got wheels, so I'd be really excited to see Marquette King.
And remember, the inaugural game for the Soul will be on November 10th at Jack in the Box Stadium. You can get your tickets at www.gosanDiegoSoul.com or watch any and all games and Kuzi TV or listen on San Diego Sports 760 AM. That'll be it for us today. For Jay Kozel, Julian Biondi, this has been Inside the Soul. Good night, everybody.
Good evening. Welcome to the premiere episode of Toronto Blizzard 24/7. I'm your host, Patrick Schauf, introducing the Toronto Blizzard as a part of the brand new Elite Football League, a major North American football league entering their inaugural season. Tonight, I'm joined by Editor-in-Chief of GoTorontoBlizzard.com, Aiden Elia.
Thanks for having me, Pat.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're here. Well, first of all, I want to start off by talking about the brand new head coach of the Blizzard, Dan Campbell, former head coach of the Detroit Lions. Aiden, should these fans be excited to have Dan Campbell lead their team?
You know, Pat, fans should definitely be excited to have Dan Campbell as their new head coach because he is a culture changer. You know, he has so much passion, an amazing leader, and he has so much aggressiveness built up inside of him, and he communicates that through his play style. You know, he led the NFL in fourth down attempts and fourth down conversions last year, and he led the Detroit Lions to their first NFL playoff victory in 32 years. So, you know, through his aggressiveness and his player-first culture, you know, that should all tie in to his fourth down conversion mentality, and the fans should rally around him.
Speaking of fourth down conversions, the Blizzard have acquired Christian McCaffrey, former 49ers running back, who will definitely help the team. How do you think Christian McCaffrey will impact this offense, especially on fourth and third down?
You know, Christian McCaffrey is going to be one of the best running backs in the Elite Football League, without question. You know, he is the 2024 NFL Offensive Player of the Year, and he is versatile in both the run game and the pass game. You know, his versatility creates unpredictability. He can set up in the backfield, in the slot, or out wide. So on fourth and short or fourth and long, Campbell will have choices, and he doesn't have to panic over a reliable option. He can make plays anywhere on the field. You got to trust this guy.
You mentioned Christian McCaffrey being the former NFL Offensive Player of the Year. He'll now be paired up with the former NFL MVP, Josh Allen, in the backfield. How do you think Josh Allen's play style and leadership will contribute to the Toronto Blizzard?
You know, Josh Allen is going to instantly elevate the Toronto Blizzard. He is the clear-cut quarterback one for this team, and his resume shows it. He set the Buffalo franchise record for total touchdowns in a career, first player ever with 5 consecutive 40-plus touchdown seasons, and he's the former NFL MVP. And when you go over to the leadership and play style side of things, he has incredible deep ball accuracy, so that'll stretch opposing teams' defenses, and he has the ability to scramble and make plays outside of the pocket. So, you know, drives are going to extend, plays are going to be staying alive, and his play style is toughness. You know, he's a big guy, 6'5", and he's ready to run through a brick wall, and that'll just extend drives and ultimately lead to more touchdowns. And he plays with so much swagger, confidence, and accountability. He's going to light up the field and the locker room.
A lot of things to like about Josh Allen, but you can't forget about former rookie sensation Jaden Daniels, who will be sitting behind Josh Allen. How will Jaden Daniels grow as a player in his backup role for the Blizzard?
Well, Pat, I think this is like a near-perfect development situation for the Toronto Blizzard, to be honest with you. You know, Daniels is a young quarterback star who led the Washington Commanders to the 2024 NFL NFC Championship in his rookie year. And although he has a few things to learn from a veteran quarterback, he is a smart quarterback, all right? You know, he could learn from Allen the pre-snap reads, just adjusting protection and the routes, as he was second in the NFL in turnovers. And he can balance his aggression a little bit with patience, you know, knowing when to make the right play, either throwing it away or going for the big throw. And, you know, overall, he has great football IQ, and it'll only grow more with Josh Allen. So he's a young star that can contribute to this Toronto team, even in the backup role.
Speaking of young stars, the Blizzard also acquired the young running back sensation Bijan Robinson, formerly on the Atlanta Falcons. When you pair him with the veteran running back like Christian McCaffrey, how do you see that working out?
Well, Bijan is a unique player for obvious reasons. You know, he's a bigger sized running back, but he's extremely elusive in both the pass and run game. You know, Bijan brings that youthful burst where he's going to create energy, and he has that contact balance to break tackles and make defenders miss, whereas McCaffrey will bring the quick decision-making and the veteran presence. So, you know, Robinson will have that raw athleticism, and, you know, McCaffrey will have that gritty explosiveness. So those two together will be something really special for Toronto, and I think it's something that they can build as a pair throughout the year.
Of course, yeah. And speaking of his value or his versatility as a receiving end, let's talk about this wide receiver room. Let's start off with Jamar Chase. How do you think Jamar Chase's downfield threat ability is going to help generate touchdowns for this offense?
Well, I mean, in the NFL, he was the clear best, or one of the best, downfield presences in the NFL. And carrying that over to the EFL, you know, he's going to change how teams defend, plain and simple. He's going to create opportunities across the entire offense, whether it's tight ends, running backs, or other receivers. And his combination of elite speed, strength, and ball tracking will make him one of the most feared receivers in the EFL. So he's also the former NFL Triple Crown winner, and I'm curious to see if he's going to carry that over to Toronto.
We'll see. But we just touched down on the downfield presence for the Blizzard. Let's talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown. How will the former 3-time NFL Pro Bowler fit in the slot for the Blizzard?
Well, Dan Campbell is clearly bringing his luggage with him from Detroit. He's bringing his best receiver that he has had while he coached in Detroit to Toronto. Amon-Ra, he's an extremely crafty player, and he allows you to maybe take the top off with Josh Allen, throw over the defense, just because you're going to have to guard that guy inside. He was the youngest Detroit Lion receiver to reach 1,000 receiving yards. He blocks aggressively in the run game, freeing up edges for McCaffrey and Robinson, and he really thrives in finding soft spot in the zone coverages. You are talking about going over the top. He's the guy in the middle of the zone, sit there, get the first down.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of slot receivers, Garrett Wilson, former New York Jet. Garrett Wilson is a receiver who excels not only in the slot, but also on the weapon as the outside. How do you think Dan Campbell will utilize Wilson in this offense with Jamar and Amon-Ra?
It's funny because I don't think that's something we're going to know until we get to game day. But it gives Dan Campbell the freedom just to be creative. Like, in the slot, I think they're going to exploit the mismatches, especially against nickel corners and linebackers, because he's clearly faster than them. But what I think is really going to help them, especially in the slot, is his route running through crossers and quick seams to punish the soft zones. And then when you move him out over to the outside, he's going to win with his elite route running and his body control. So when you see him one-on-one, that's when you have to attack with Garrett Wilson. So generally, I think he's just going to be that inside-outside weapon, and you can shift him across a ton of formations.
Absolutely. Talking about a player with a lot of versatility, another receiver with a lot of versatility, CeeDee Lamb, also on this offense. What do you think CeeDee Lamb will bring to this offense that causes trouble for opposing defenses?
He's going to be a nightmare, simply a nightmare, and it's going to be through his explosiveness. He led the league in receptions in 2023, and he did that because he played in all positions, in the slot and out wide. He uses his length and physicality to dominate one-on-one. So when you see him on the end of the field, you also have to look at CeeDee Lamb. You can't take him out of this offense. And then when you see him in the slot, he's a nightmare for smaller corners. He's too quick for the linebackers and too strong for the defensive backs. And he can motion pre-snap. You can use him in the jet sweep, and it'll create confusion for opposing defenses. So he's generally that do-it-all wide receiver that Toronto's looking for.
Absolutely. Now moving over to the tight end room for the Blizzard, they have Sam Laporta and Brock Bowers, two young guys who have been pretty successful so far in their career in the NFL. Aiden, who do you believe will win the starting tight end job between these young stars?
In their young careers, they've both made a case for this starting spot. For Laporta, as a rookie, he immediately became one of the most productive tight ends in the league, and he posted historic numbers in the NFL for his first season. And he's obviously a polished route runner, strong blocker, and a reliable red zone option. And he's coming over with Dan Campbell, so he has experience in this offense. And then the case for Bowers, he has great yard after catch ability, and you rarely see that at the tight end position. He's also dynamic, where he can motion out wide. You can use him in jet sweeps, believe it or not. And he adds creativity to this offense, which makes his play-make ceiling so high. So I think this is going to be a 1A, 1B scenario for Dan Campbell. Hard to make one the starter over the other, because if you take one out of the offense, it's going to become limited. So they both fit the scheme for Dan Campbell.
Absolutely. Those two will surely be fun to watch throughout this year. In football, they always say that the game is won in the trenches. So let's talk about the trenches. Armand Membu, Tristan Wirfs, and Jordan Mailata, three guys who we believe are going to be competing for the starting tackle jobs. They dominated the so-called trenches in the NFL. Do you think that'll carry over into the EFL?
I think that'll absolutely carry over. I mean, Membu, Wirfs, and Mailata have the potential not to just carry their dominance into this league, but they can set a new standard for trench play in this league, and they can make a name for themselves. Membu, the 7th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, he's going to be that young, reckless mauler. He's going to be mean, relentless, and he's going to play with the nastiness that Dan Campbell loves. And then Wirfs is going to be that explosive but technical flawless is what he's going to bring, and arguably the most athletic tackle in football. His footwork and his hand placement makes him nearly impossible to beat. And then Mailata, he's that 6'8", 365-pound absolute fridge wall with rugby-born agility. His strength and reach make him elite in both pass and run sets, and he helped lead the Eagles to win the Super Bowl in 2024, so he's been here before.
And these offensive tackles are also paired with three incredible inside linemen. Let's talk about Creed Humphrey, a former center with the Kansas City Chiefs, two-time Super Bowl champion. How will he impact this offensive line in the pass game and the run game?
Well, he is going to be the heartbeat for this Toronto Blizzard offensive line. He's going to be that emotional anchor. He's cerebral, physical, and he makes everybody around him better. You know, in the passing game, he's going to prevent the interior pocket from collapsing. So that'll allow Josh Allen to step up, make the big throw in crunch time situations. And his awareness of blitzes just all around the field allows guards to trust him, and they don't have to worry about handling the edge support. And then obviously Josh Allen, as a result, will just get a stable interior pocket, more time for vertical routes to open up and take the long shot downfield, and he can step into those throws confidently instead of having to bail out early.
Absolutely. Now, he'll also be paired with another young offensive lineman, Joe Alt. What type of energy do you think Joe Alt will bring to this team?
Well, Joe Alt, he's a young player in this league, so I really think he's going to bring a ton of energy to this team. He's the 5th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, and he came out of Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman preached at Notre Dame, you have to have elite fundamentals and football IQ to be successful in the NFL. So he's very detail-oriented in his footwork and hand placement especially, which is rare for a player of his age. You don't see many guards being that dedicated to their work at his age. And he plays with controlled aggression. So as a result, I think Campbell and his staff can trust him early in rotations or spot starts when he might not have to start at a position, but they're injured and he has to start. So they can trust him from an early stage.
Absolutely. Toronto seems to be investing in their future with these young linemen, but they've also acquired a veteran, Joe Thuney, former Patriot, former Chief, all reliable veteran Joe Thuney. What do you expect for him to bring to the table?
It's plain and simple. He's going to bring that rock-solid consistency that you're looking for. He's missed almost no time throughout his playing career in football, and he's played through extreme pain, and he has elite durability. And what's special is every snap from him looks the exact same. It's crisp, balanced, and has great awareness. So coaches should really never have to worry about his side of the line collapsing. You can really be stable and build around him. And on top of that, he's a 4-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots and Kansas City Chiefs, and he's the first player in NFL history to start in 3 consecutive Super Bowls in his first 3 seasons. That's pretty special.
Absolutely. And speaking of consistency, Toronto will have 2 of the NFL's former top defensive linemen in Nick Bosa and Quinnen Williams. Aiden, how do you see these additions shaping the identity of the Toronto defense?
Well, it instantly turns their defense from talented to terrifying. You have these 2 guys coming on your defense. It's no longer just, we have a talented defense. It's terrifying. They play with relentless effort, which defines the games, dictates the tempo, and embodies the physical style that Dan Campbell preaches. They'll give the Blizzard conviction that'll spread throughout the roster, and it'll give the defense a feeling of pressure. People are going to be scared to go against this defense and try and make plays.
Absolutely. And these 2 defensive linemen will also be teamed up with 2 absolute game wreckers, Jeffrey Simmons and Nnamdi Madueke. Aiden, what should fans look forward to about the game styles of Simmons and Madueke?
So Simmons and Madueke, they're going to be monsters for the Blizzard defensive front. They have complementary play styles, which will make it nice for the defense to kind of work around when you have 2 of the same guys kind of going at an offense. Simmons, he's going to be the tone setter and enforcer through his leadership and intensity, and it's going to be based off of power and technique. He has explosive hands, perfect leverage, and he likes to dominate guards. Whereas Madueke, he's going to be that disruptor, the guy to make the big play through his quickness, penetration, and versatility. He's going to shoot the gaps like a defensive end, and he's going to split the double teams before linemen even get set. So Madueke is going to be that guy, and Simons, he's going to build off of him.
Absolutely. Those 2 are going to absolutely wreak havoc upon each opposing offense. I think the biggest addition to this defense is former Green Bay Packer Micah Parsons. Do you envision Micah being used more as a pure edge rusher, or will the coaching staff continue to take advantage of his versatility?
Well, this situation kind of perfectly captures Micah Parsons' dilemma and luxury. I expect Dan Campbell to maximize his versatility because you can't limit him to just be a pure pass and edge rusher. Parsons is elite enough to dominate as a full-time pass rusher, and his hybrid explosiveness and football IQ make him far too valuable to be just in one role. So he can rush off the edge like Nick Bosa. He can blitz inside just like Quinnen Williams, and he can drop into coverage and erase tight ends or running backs. So as people like to say, you can't limit a guy like Parsons. You just got to unleash him.
Absolutely. Well, Toronto has lots of options considering their versatility. Speaking of which, Aiden Hutchinson and Alex Highsmith. With that being said, how does Hutchinson's intensity and Highsmith's discipline contribute to that locker room identity for the Blizzard?
These 2 guys, I think, are going to be the biggest keys on this defense. And they might not be the biggest names, but I think they're going to be the biggest contributors. They are the heart and soul of this locker room. Together, it's where passion meets precision. Hutchison and Highsmith complement each other perfectly. One thrives on emotion, the other thrives on execution. Hutchison will fire the team up, and Highsmith will keep it grounded. So as a result, you get a locker room that's intense but composed, and that's exactly what you want for a championship team.
Absolutely. This defensive line will be backed by 3 trusted linebackers, starting with Fred Warner, who would be the heartbeat middle linebacker. Was finding a leader in the middle of the field a priority for Toronto heading into the season?
It was definitely a priority because Dan Campbell realized early, no matter how good your defense is, it's all for naught if you don't have a field general. So he's going to be the Josh Allen of the defense. He's going to make all the pre-snap adjustments, and his football IQ is off the charts. So he'll be able to sniff out a run and defend a pass.
Absolutely, and having that stable leader in the middle of the field will be key for the Blizzard. Building around that key piece, Toronto added 2 other linebackers, Quincy Williams and Nick Bolton. Aiden, from your perspective, what separates Williams and Bolton from other linebackers in the league?
3 things: speed, physicality, and attitude. It's how they play, their instincts, energy, and the way they complement the defense's overall identity. Williams is going to fly side to side with elite closing speed, and he's going to close gaps and can chase down especially fast ball carriers. And then, Bolton is young, but he plays with instincts like a 10-year veteran. He sees plays develop before they even happen, and he was a Super Bowl champion with the Kansas City Chiefs, so he's been here before, and he's always in the right place at the right time, really good at closing down angles. So it's a linebacker room full of intelligence and playmaking ability.
Absolutely. Quincy Williams, brother of Quinnen Williams, so hopefully that bond will help bring more unity to the defense. The middle of the field should be pretty tough to throw into against Toronto. And speaking of throwing against Toronto, defending the outside of the field, the Blizzard acquired 2 very young cornerbacks, Aiden. Both Sauce Gardner, former New York Jet, and Derek Stingley Jr., former Houston Texan, both in the same NFL draft class. They both bring unique skill sets. So what excites you the most about how they complement each other?
They complement each other very well, but it's through 2 different play styles. They both want to dominate, but through different ways. Gardner brings that confidence and swagger. He is fearless. He wants to face your wide receiver 1 week in and week out. And he also brings elite length. He's a tall cornerback, so he's very versatile. Whereas Stingley, he has those ball hawk instincts. He has incredible timing and body control, allowing him to play the ball just as well as a receiver. And he has explosive closing speed, so when you throw that ball, he's going to be there to deflect it, intercept it, and make a play.
Absolutely. Both former first-team All-Pros with the NFL, so I feel fans should be pretty excited about that. Now, wrapping things up on the defensive side of the ball, the Blizzards have a pair of safeties that look to ease the possibility of teams going over the top. Brian Branch, former Detroit Lion, and Trent McDuffie, former Kansas City Chiefs. How important is both of their football IQs to this defense, and how are they going to help contribute to this?
They are both some of the smartest defensive backs in the game. When you're talking about having a fantastic defensive front, you also have to have 2 safeties who are intelligent and can cover the top of the field. And that's exactly what you have in Branch and McDuffie. They're 2 of the most intelligent and instinct-driven backs in football. They're going to be the anchors, but they're going to be the quiet, calculating protectors who make the aggression up front possible. Branch is going to bring the instincts, versatility, and disruptive intelligence. McDuffie's going to bring the technique, communication, and tactical mastery. So their IQs don't just help the defense. They're going to enable it, and Dan Campbell has fearless guys at the top of the field.
Absolutely. And McDuffie, not a secret, former cornerback, never played safety in any professional football league. Do you think he'll translate well to safety in the EFL?
I think he'll translate very well to being safety in the NFL, and it's through his work ethic. He's going to work hard. He's going to make sure he has the playbook down, and he's going to be a big contributor for this team.
Absolutely. Now moving on to special teams, let's talk about the brand new specialists of the Blizzard, former Philadelphia Eagles punter Braden Mann and former Dallas Cowboys kicker Brandon Aubrey. Should fans put any stock into this new punter-kicker duo?
Fans should definitely put stock into this special teams duo, and I'll tell you why. Starting with Braden Mann, he is the field position master. He has elite hang time and placement, and he was top 5 in NFL in average punt yards. And he can flip the field instantly. He's steady under pressure, doesn't flinch when he has to pin a team deep, and he has amazing directional control to minimize return lanes for other teams' returners. And then when you look at Aubrey, he is the sharpshooter. He has big lane range, accuracy, and the mental toughness. He's comfortable and consistent from 55-plus yards, and he led the NFL in field goal percentage in 2024. He also has a soccer background, so he is not scared of playing in front of big crowds. So They should definitely buy stock into these 2.
Absolutely. Well, all right, folks. As we wrap up this premiere episode of Toronto Blizzard 24/7, we hope you're just as excited as we are to watch the Blizzard play at BMO Stadium on November 12th, where you can purchase tickets at goblizzardtoronto.com or catch the game on the DAZN network. You can also catch the game on the radio at TSN 1050 AM or Sportsnet 590 AM The Fan. I'm your host, Patrick Schauf, joined by Aiden Elia. We hope to see you on the 12th, and have a great night.